Dr. Richard Coleman, a sharp-witted calculus professor known for his unapologetic arrogance. His eyes briefly scanned the room before landing on a student he had been eager to challenge. Barron Trump. The professor smirked, tapping the chalk against the board. "Let's have a little fun," he thought. "Mr. Trump," Dr. Coleman called, his voice laced with amusement. "Let's see if you're as good with numbers as your father is with, let's call it business deals." Laughter rippled through the room. Barron didn't react. Then the professor scribbled a near-impossible calculus problem on the board. He had no idea what was coming next. Westwood University was known for its rigorous academics, attracting some of the brightest minds in the country. But in room 304, where advanced calculus was taught, intelligence alone wasn't enough. You had to survive Dr. Richard Coleman. Coleman had built a reputation as a brilliant but ruthless professor. He prided himself on his sharp tongue and had little patience for students he considered unworthy of his time, especially those with famous last names. To him, Barron Trump was nothing more than a spoiled legacy student, a young man riding on the power of his father's name. Barron, however, had no interest in proving himself to anyone. He was quiet, composed, and rarely spoke in class. He sat near the middle of the lecture hall, always listening, but never drawing attention. Unlike his classmates, who scrambled to impress the professor, he remained an enigma. Dr. Coleman, however, had been waiting for this moment. In his mind, humiliating Barron Trump in front of his peers would be a lesson, not just for him, but for anyone who thought privilege could replace intellect. Dr. Coleman tapped the chalk against the board, his smirk widening. "All right, let's see what you've got, Mr. Trump," he said, turning to face Barron. With deliberate strokes, he scribbled an incredibly complex calculus problem across the board, an advanced integral equation meant to stump even the brightest students. The room fell into a hushed silence. Students exchanged glances, some suppressing grins. This was classic Coleman, picking out a target, setting them up for failure, and enjoying the spectacle. Few ever escaped unscathed. "Go ahead," the professor gestured toward the board, folding his arms. "Show us your math skills." Barron sat still for a moment, his face unreadable. He could feel the eyes on him, some amused, some anticipating his downfall. Slowly he stood, adjusting his sleeves as he walked toward the front. He took the chalk, staring at the problem for just a moment. Dr. Coleman leaned against his desk, expecting hesitation, confusion, maybe even an excuse. But Barron did something no one expected. He began solving it immediately. His movements were calm, methodical, confident. The numbers and symbols flowed across the board with perfect precision. A murmur spread through the room, whispers of disbelief. Dr. Coleman's smirk faltered ever so slightly. Barron continued, effortlessly working through the equation, his expression focused, yet unbothered. Within seconds it became clear he wasn't just solving it, he was solving it faster than anyone had before. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing, just a steady, confident flow of calculations that left the room in stunned silence. Students leaned forward, watching in disbelief. A few exchanged wide-eyed glances, some whispering under their breath. Was this really happening? Dr. Coleman's smirk had completely vanished. His arms, once crossed in amusement, slowly unfolded as his eyes darted between the board and Barron. He had expected stammering, mistakes, not perfection. The final steps came quickly. Barron's chalk clicked against the board one last time as he underlined the flawless answer. The silence in the room was deafening. He turned around, meeting the professor's gaze with a calm expression. "Anything else, Professor?" Barron asked, his voice even. For a moment, Dr. Coleman didn't speak. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. It was clear he had underestimated the wrong student. Then, from the back of the room, a single clap. Another followed, and then the entire class erupted. Laughter, cheers, stunned applause. Some students shook their heads in disbelief. Barron handed the chalk back to the professor and walked back to his seat as if nothing had happened. Dr. Coleman, still standing in front of the board, cleared his throat. "Well," he muttered, forcing a chuckle, "that was, unexpected." But everyone in the room knew the truth. He had just been outclassed. The energy in the lecture hall had completely shifted. Moments ago, students had been expecting a humiliating spectacle, another victim of Dr. Coleman's sharp tongue. But instead, they had just witnessed something unforgettable. A student pulled out his phone, whispering, "This is going viral." Another chuckled, shaking his head. "I can't believe it, the guy's a genius." Dr. Coleman, still flustered, tried to regain control of the room. "All right, let's move on," he muttered, turning back to the board as if nothing had happened. But the damage was done. His reputation as the smartest person in the room had just taken a serious hit. Barron, unfazed, simply pulled out his notebook and continued taking notes. He hadn't needed to prove anything, but today he had. By that evening, the video of Barron's brilliant takedown was everywhere, and the world had just learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate a trump.